Well, thank you. It's actually really great to be with you. I'm going to talk from a little different angle about game changing because I've had the opportunity over the last several months to actually be here on site and see what it is that happens with the teams of folks that are here. And so I want to talk about it from a little bit of a different angle, from a researcher angle. My background is I work at the university. I'm a researcher. I've written a couple books about it. The new book that's coming out has a chapter on Autovol, and I got to spend some time with Rick and Merrick and just kind of really dig into the history of all of this. But I want to share what I've seen just from being here, and maybe a few things that you could take and say, how could I apply this actually to my organization and my team and the people that I work with? Because not only am I a researcher and an author and a professor, but I also do specific work around leadership and team development and working with teams and organizations. And as I've thought about the idea of being a game changer, what does it truly mean to be a game changer? There's something that I see continually when I interact with folks here at Autovol, and it's this idea of culture. And what does culture really mean? So one of the first things I do when I work with the group here is I ask them, why do you want to be a part of Autovol? What is it that drove you to come here, to go through the interview process? And again and again and again and again, I hear things like this: culture, family, teamwork, innovation. And when I hear that, and I see that through the interactions that I have with people, that's actually being lived out through the conversations, through the organization, through how they engage with one another. It's exciting to see that the culture is more than just a word. It's actually lived out in how they interact with each other. That's truly game changing, because I work with a lot of organizations that say we want to be a game changer, but they don't do anything. They just talk about it. They talk about it, and here's the worst part. They put it on a wall. They put it on a wall that says we want to be a game changer, and then they do nothing about it. They just put it on the wall. And here, they don't just talk about it, but they actually do it. So the research methodology that I use in working with organizations is called appreciative inquiry. And appreciative inquiry really is this idea of what are the strengths? You see, we spend a lot of time, if we're not careful, looking at all the weaknesses. Have you ever looked in a mirror? What are you trained to do when you look in a mirror? Right. It's everything that's what's wrong. When was the last time you looked in the mirror and said, my eyes look great? Man, look at my face. It's looking really good. Right? We don't. And oftentimes, because we're trained to look at certain things a certain way, we tend to look at people the same way. And instead of the strengths that they bring, we go, oh, if that person was just a little more like this, or if that person was just a little more this way, if that person would just do this, then they would truly be able to show up and be a game changer. And truly in changing the game, and this is one of the things that I've noticed about Autovol and the company and how they look at things, is that they look at people's strengths. So when they hold up a mirror, they don't say, here's all the things that are wrong. They say, here's what you bring to the team. Here's what you bring to the organization. And they move from a strength-based approach. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't challenge people in areas that they need to grow in, but they look at it from a strength-based, and when they do that, they recognize something, because game changers recognize this, that your strength is your people. That's changing the game. It's the people. That's the people. Now, this technology is fantastic and is changing the game in the industry, but it's the people who are a part of this that are actually the ones that are making the change, because you're only as strong as your people. And as I've sat with Rick, and as I've sat with Merrick, and I've sat with others, and I've listened to them talk about the organization, they talk a lot about culture. And this is how I define culture. Merrick and I have had lots of conversations about this, but I define culture as your culture is your values plus your behaviors. That's what equals your culture. Your values plus your behaviors equals your culture. So if you have these values that are all up here along the ceiling when you walk in, that's great. Those are your values. But then what are the behaviors that would say that person is truly changing the game? What does it mean to actually be a game changer? Just yesterday, I finished working with another group of 20, and the last activity that we do is an activity around values, where I literally have them think through values, and they start with a list of 40, and they have to narrow it down to 10, and then from 10 to 5, and then 5 to 3, and then I say, now I want you to pick one. If you could just choose one value to live for the next 30 days, what would that value be? And here's what I heard yesterday: loyalty, love, humor, trustworthiness, hard work, integrity. These were the values that people were talking about, saying this, if I can only choose one for the next 30 days, this is it. And I thought to myself, I said, you know what? You're driving home the values and the behaviors, because people that are showing up when they're talking about it, they're changing the game, because it's not just like, oh, I want to show up this way, but no, this is what's important to me. So I'm not going to take very much time. I want to share with you just a few things that I have seen how this organization has actually changed the game through their values. And the first is Solutioneers. First off, fantastic idea to name it Solutioneers. I actually think it's a defining characteristic of this organization. But if they just named them Solutioneers and then were like, yeah, that's great, that's a cool title, but you don't have actually any power to change anything, then I wouldn't have just told you good job. But because of the fact that they say, listen, Solutioneers are about empowerment. It's about you're closest to some of the situations. You see what needs to go on. We don't have to have a bottleneck of everything has to run through one person. You're close to it. You see it. Think outside the box and fix it. And when I was chatting with John, we were talking about how sometimes we tend to think that Solutioneers is only for folks within the organization. But I would bet you that those that are in leadership within this organization would also challenge you all in this room to be Solutioneers. For you to think about how you can change the game within your organization and within the pipeline that leads into the supplies that you actually bring to this team. So how would you change the game when it comes to that? How would you think outside the box? Because that's what they challenge their Solutioneers to do, and I think it's fantastic. I think it's actually a defining characteristic. I think another thing that changes the game for these folks is that they truly do put others first. It's not just a conversation, it's not just a talk. I hear it time and time and time again when I'm here, that it's about putting others first. You create an expectation to serve others when they walk through the door, and what happens is it actually happens. It's not just a conversation, it's not just a slogan. They actually care about one another, and they put others first, and it creates this teamwork that is so amazing. I also think, though, that what changes the game for these guys is that they listen to understand versus listen to respond. It was Calvin Coolidge who said, no one ever listened their way out of a job. Now just think about that for a second. No one ever listened their way out of a job. Folks in this organization have made a commitment not just to listen to respond or think about the next thing that I want to say, but they're actually listening to understand, which means I got to actually put myself in someone else's shoes. One of the activities that we do is they have an assessment that they take, and then I have them stand around the outside of the room from 0 to 100 based on where they landed on this assessment, and we have conversations. I say, look at the people directly across from you. They're going to frustrate you to no end because they think completely differently than you do. But at the same time, they're also your greatest allies. They are your greatest allies because they see things completely differently than you, and you need them and they need you. That's listening to understand. And they have made a commitment to that, and it's been beautiful to watch, and it's been beautiful to see. I think the two things that have been, for me, the biggest aha moments as I've spent time here have been these two things. If you're going to truly be Solutioneers who change the game, the first is they have worked really, really hard at creating owners versus renters. You know what I mean by that, right? Like, if you rent a house and something breaks, what do? You call the landlord, right? It's someone else's responsibility. Call the property manager, whoever. Like, just call somebody else and let them deal with it. Now, sometimes the landlord says, hey, you fix it, I'll deduct it from your rent. That's great. But when you're an owner and something breaks in your house, what do? You got to fix it, right? You got to fix it, whether that be call somebody who's a professional, because as my wife will tell you, I'm not allowed to touch anything in the house. But you call somebody who can fix it, but you own it, it's yours. The same is true of what happens in the workplace. You see, renters are literally people who just collect a paycheck. They just show up, they go through the motions, and then they leave. But owners are folks who believe in the vision and the mission and the direction of the organization, and I see it all over with Solutioneers. I see it all over with how they engage. They're invested in the success of the team, they're invested in the program, they're invested in the line, they're invested in the group that they work with, and their success is the organization's success, and the organization's success is their success. And so they've created a sense of ownership versus just renting. And then the last one that I think truly does change the game for Autovol and how they see the world, and it's a challenge for you as well, is that they trust their people. The idea of a Solutioneer is not just simply a title, it's actually extending trust every single day to the people that are a part of their team and saying, guess what? We're for you, we believe in you, we hired you because you have skills, but we also believe that you are a whole human being and you show up here with all sorts of stuff. Sometimes you show up on the way in, you've got a ticket, or you had a horrible morning when you left the house, but you're still here and we still extend you trust. And they show it over and over and over again. And when you do that, guess what? What you do is you develop people who become the best versions of themselves. And when you develop people who become the best versions of themselves, they turn around and extend that trust back to the leadership, back to the ownership, back to everybody involved. So trust is this two-way street. And it's beautiful to see as I've watched it. See, this is how you grow and develop people. You do it through putting others first. You do it through creating owners. You do it through trusting people. And truly, from a practical business perspective, that's what's changing the game. And so my hope is that they will continue to practice that, and that you will take those things, one or two things that you heard, and begin to implement those and practice it, because that's where game changing actually takes place. I appreciate you guys giving me a few minutes of your time.